Wonderful. Okay, everybody, we're going to come back. A couple of notes for everyone. So each group, what I'd like you to do is you're gonna nominate a speaker, and then you're gonna share again just the bones of your lesson plan, just kind of like what your idea was, what was your standard. Many of you should have found this very difficult. And some of you might not have, because there are only segments of Harry's story that were applicable. Some of their issues were in also the primary sources, and actually that's intentional. That's completely okay as well. Oftentimes we're faced with a lack of resources and a lack of time, even in the timing. Okay, who here feels they had a decent lesson knocked together? Okay, what's that? That's a lot of faith here. I think actually I saw a lot of like decent lessons that were put out, but there are. Who feels as an educator that you often get deprofessionalized, as a teacher that you don't matter as much to the rest of the world? Okay. There are, just so you know, there are organizations that actually would rather teachers not teach the Holocaust. They would like to teach the Holocaust for them, because they say teachers can't and possibly can't understand and can't write the curriculum, don't know the curriculum, don't understand it. So the idea is, let's just pull it out of their hands and we'll come in and teach it for 2 or 3 days for them. I don't believe that. I don't believe that should be funded. I don't believe that should be looked at. And I wanted you guys to have an opportunity just to see, it's what you could write in this short amount of time and see what we can use. I would wager that we probably have at least a handful of really good lessons, or the bones for lessons, and look at the activities that you will find useful and that we can incorporate into other stories. Because many of you probably used activities that we can probably incorporate using other stories. We can use other primary sources, and we could put these into really structured lessons. If you don't know already, we actually have on our website, if you go to, someone already posted at hmrec.org, we have a section. We're going to have a new set of lesson plans. They're going to be up by September. That'll be also downloadable. We're also going to try to set them up in a way that you can have in multiple formats. But also, I want to get contributions from the community. Wouldn't you be more apt to use lessons that you helped create? Yes? I mean, I would rather use lessons. Even when you get teachers pay teachers lessons, wouldn't it be best if you could actually develop them as your own that meet the needs of your classrooms? Yeah. Hopefully. Vetted by other teachers, even if I couldn't help create. Exactly. This is. And to me, this is the best form of a PLC. I know it's a dirty word, but the idea of but I hope you've all met people this week that you trust and respect and that you can build off of. We do have a Florida Holocaust Educators Facebook group that and I will send out a link for it for everyone. But we try to put out resources. We try to do share outs. When the Holocaust Center is doing something, when you're doing something, when Nikki's doing something down in Miami, we try to share out things on this group and try to build a little bit of a community so we can actually learn from one another. I have direct connections for OCPS for curriculum. We have Marty here for Seminole. Thank you so much for coming. It was really wonderful having you. We can actually find things out that you need if you have questions as to whether things align with the state by going to the task force, by going to the DOE as well. So if you have questions, if you're concerned about what you're teaching, we're happy to help you out. But that's what we want to be as a resource. It's the Holocaust Memorial Resource and Education Center. We want to be able to actually help you out as much as we possibly can. Yes, Randy. That's going to be, okay, Randy asked what the motive is of the organization. Money? I will say money, in my opinion. They were, I will not be naming the organization, but they were an assisted living facility that had a few survivors living there, and they decided to kind of use their testimonies as a way to create some lessons from a kindergarten teacher and build an LMS, and then they started saying that we will come and we'll do for $250 a head for your students in the district, that we will come in and we will teach the Holocaust, and that way your teachers don't have to know how to teach it. I'm not a fan. I've made it publicly known on the task force. I've actually probably made people unhappy, and I'm willing to do that because I think it deprofessionalizes some of the wonderful work our educators are doing here. I think many of you actually have a lot of insight and are amazing educators. You've all shown it by giving up your week. You did not give up your week for $300. I'm sorry, that did not make or break you one way or the other. But you gave up your week to edify yourself. And I know some of you have been here for years. You're amazing educators. This is my favorite part of the year. It's very hard for me to give this up. I'm not supposed to give this up to our resource teacher. And it's very hard for me to give this up. I actually love the stress of it. I love the pain of it. I will not equate it to giving childbirth. But I do love doing this. And not even running it. It's just watching everyone interact is so cool. It is really amazing. To see what you guys build, what you do, the responses you give, and I really gives me hope. And when people say that education is indoctrinating or doing all these other things, I don't see it. I see people who want to bring out the best in their students and want to teach them about, meaningful lessons, especially in social studies. I think that's you're the best of what we've got, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you all for coming this week, and I can't wait to see what you share out. Those of you online, I mean the same to each and every one of you. You're giving up your time. For those of you from South Florida, those of you from up in North Carolina, I really do appreciate all of your efforts and everything you're giving to us. Last little bit on for those of you who are here in person, you will be, because you've been here the entire time, you're going to get your books on the way out. You have to sign off that you got your books, so we don't did a double dip and accidentally mail books out to you. And then you'll get a chance to go through our exhibit, Curious George. We actually have 200 people signed up to come in tonight. I'm going to take this back. It is the story of Margaret Ray. It is not Curious George. It's Margaret Ray, who is the creator of Curious George, who actually got out of Paris as she had fled Germany, went to Paris, and ultimately talks about her journey. And then basically what Curious George meant and the creation of Curious George, as she actually had the sketches and drawings of what eventually became Curious George until she published them when she came to the United States. So it's a little lighthearted. It's a nice little entryway discussion, just discussing anti-Semitism and discussing what happened to her and her story. So Kayla actually worked on the activities that you'll see out there that for the younger kids. I think they're really well thought out and well put together. But I'm going to let you guys get a sneak peek before everybody else. So you don't have to leave through the back door today. You can go through here, and then Kayla will hand you your bag. We're giving you a tote bag. You're going to have one of the USBs from Nikki that will have survivor testimonies on it, and we'll have some resources on it. And you will have, and you put your folders in there. You will have your books, and everything else, other resources we put in there for you as well to share. So with that, we're going to use the last few minutes. I'd like to start with group one, and I'm going to hand you the microphone, and if you wouldn't mind sharing out and if everyone could do me a favor, everyone's inclination to please just this one last time, just to be respectful when someone else is presenting, don't get up and pack up. You heard that in class. Please just be respectful so everyone can share out, because everyone worked really hard on their lessons, and I'd like to be respectful of them and their time.
All right, I'm going to do my best to keep this little, because it is not my wheelhouse. We had benchmark 1, so that is describing the life of Jews, or how the life of Jews deteriorated under the Third Reich and the Nuremberg laws in Germany and its annexed territories. So we decided to go with there was a video shown over the last couple of days that was life before the Holocaust. So we used that as our opener. To kind of say, hey, what does this look like for normal life? And then we also used the video and transcribed testimony of Peter's story and the video testimony of Harry's story, so that we could look at that tone shift that we discussed yesterday for Peter's story, and then use Harry's story to discuss the within, so that we could then have a conversation about dehumanization and maintaining your morality, even in a deplorable situation, or the ability to do so regardless of what had been taken, so that we can try to use this as SEL to teach historical fact via the Nuremberg laws. Students will use a graphic organizer to hear the Nuremberg laws. Here are some takeaways from Peter's story, here are some from Harry's story, and then they finish by writing an open response paragraph about all of that. That's what I got for you. So it goes step by step through it, 2 videos, but with transcribed testimony that we can also not dumb down, lower the Lexile for our ELL students if need be.
All right. That was amazing.
Thanks. I know. I agree.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly. Everyone should agree. Here we'll go. Okay. Our next group 2. Please zoom in really, really close on some faces. Okay.
Yeah, it was just getting.
I thought you printed up the thing. Do we just read that?
So ours is, the Holocaust education lesson was titled From Law to Violence, the Road to and from Crystal Knot and the Effects Before and After That. We used Harry Lowenstein's story to help high school students understand how Harry Lowenstein, we used his story to help understand the legal persecution under the Nazi German regime escalated. It didn't just happen overnight, and the incrementalization over the years, and that was our lesson, pretty much. Did you want to add something?
Well, just about the activities that we were going to do. You want to talk a little bit about the activities? Okay, yeah.
Great.
Just let me pull it up on my screen so I can see. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we had a couple of activities that we wanted to use to help students to empathize with Harry. First of all, to put his story in context, to understand how events moved from Kristallnacht to the general persecution of Jews, but not involving their deportation because there was no place to deport them to yet, to how when Nazi Germany occupied Poland, they also obtained territory to which they could send Jews in exile. Harry was in one of the first groups to be deported from Eastern Germany into the far eastern reaches of Poland. So actually during Operation Barbarossa, to Riga and then to the Riga ghetto and to the Kaiserwald, and how his family story fits into the larger timeline. So we have an activity where the students are creating using laws, edicts, photos, and events to put them on a timeline to help them to understand the development of the policy that affected Harry and his family personally. Then we had an activity where the students were going to use a T-chart to compare, using his testimony, to compare the identity that the Nuremberg laws imposed on Jews, to compare it with the identity that you can hear Harry using to describe himself, his life, and his family, and to show how much of a contrast there was between those two identities. With the bottom line being the realization that to impose an identity on somebody against their will is in fact a human rights crime and part of the crime of the Holocaust. So then we also then had the students do reflections to see if they were able to, first of all, understand the events that Harry was describing and put them in that larger context, but then even more so, were they able to create an empathetic understanding of Harry and make a personal connection to him based on the factors of his life that they share, that all people share, family relationships, hopes and dreams for the future, and that carrying on even into Harry's later life as he came to America, got married, established a family, started a business, and became a contributing member of this community.
From now on, can we please make Mitch go last? Thank you. The only thing I hate more than my voice is looking at my picture. Oh, I know. I didn't want them to hear me. The perceptions and restrictions of Jewish immigration is what we were looking at. We used the packet clearly. We also used the extra document on the, now I'm drawing a blank, on the 1C protocol. Plus, I went and found on the Yad Vashem website a summary of the decisions from the Evian conference, because I think it's important that the kids know about the Evian conference. For those of you that don't know, the Evian conference was called by Franklin, by FDR, to try and figure out what to do with the refugee problem. And of course, the Dominican Republic offered land. No one else offered anything, basically, including the United States. Yeah, no, it wasn't, but it looks it when you look at it in print. But yeah, basically, we looked at the primary, it's all primary source material, everything we're using clearly. And what we wanted the kids to get out of it was to understand that it's easy for people to say, well, why didn't you just leave? But as Judith was talking about earlier today, just leaving wasn't an easy option. And when you look at the source material, you look at Harry's story, and you look at the protocol, which basically the only way people were getting out is if organizations outside of the area were paying basically a head price for them. You know, the Nazis were telling, well, this is how much per head, and we'll give you this many Jews to take out. So we have a lot of reflecting, a lot of small group work, large group conversations, and that type of thing. Because the best way for a teacher to judge whether or not the kids understand what's going on is to engage them in conversation. It's not enough just to hand them something and say, discuss it amongst yourselves. You really need to get them to come back and go, like you're doing with us right now, share, tell us what you got.
All right, we'll have our next group.
Okay, we did this from the perspective of 4th and 5th grade students. So, 10, 11 years old. So we get them early on. Our standard was examine the role that bystanders, collaborators, perpetrators played in the implementation of Nazi policies against Jewish people, as well as the role of rescuers in opposing the Nazis and their policies. What we're emphasizing with our children, and especially, and we're going through the Upstanders program, how children act, how do you act and think when you see, something that's going on. If you see someone treated unfairly, we're trying to emphasize them to speak up, to stand up for others when wrong is being done to them. So we kind of took that standard and kind of worked it so it would help us with our age level. Our essential question was, what would motivate an individual to help another person when knowingly they might be risking their life? And we took from the Harry Lowenstein story, that piece where even though the neighbors were throwing rocks at the windows and all this, they still, one of their neighbors was giving them eggs, or that bakery that still sold to them. So, and we also talk about risk taking. They were taking a risk doing that, but they did it because they knew it was the right thing to do. So we have the resources. We found some great videos on echoes and reflections that are age appropriate. And that's always key for us, is to find pieces that are age appropriate for a 10 and 11-year-old. So a lot of student engagement, a lot of group discussions, and we thought for a summative assessment to have some kind of writing reflection with a rubric that allows them to really put down what they feel, and in their in what is appropriate for them. So that's what anything else? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right. In group 5, we were tasked to deal with benchmark 2.10, which is explain the origins and purposes of the ghetto. With my background in social studies, like I'm super obsessed with the primary source like element. So we would use the WANTC protocol like from that list, but like we're talking about how to like kind of scaffold it down. Our hook exercise would involve some kind of visual analysis. We're looking for appropriate images there to kind of compare like an image of a ghetto with a more like rural countryside living situation that maybe, say a traditional like Jewish family may have lived in, just to deal with that, because we kind of want to explore like how the Nazis' obsession with race and space contributed to the formation of the ghetto. And then I begged Stephen, instead of using Harry, if we could use like one of the couriers like Vlad Kamir or something like that, and bring in the experience of one of these women who, was in and out of the ghetto, to contribute. So we're still working on the essential questions and everything, but I really want it to be something that's usable for our teachers in our high school social studies classrooms.
He's been the sucker teacher who will always be like, all right, if you're still using the primary source, I'll go ahead and I will usually take anything. Because if it works, it works. That's the whole thing, is you're going to modify your lessons to make them work how you need them to work no matter what. Even if I put something up that's completely, structured, because it needs to fit your needs of your classroom, because you're never going to have the same students twice. They're always going to be different in different ways, and you'll need to shape the lesson, mold it to fit the needs of your classrooms.
In group 6, we were assigned discuss life in various ghettos. I am a theater teacher, so I took a different approach on this, and the ladies have been very kind in letting me have some space to do that. 2 things that I also need to cover in my classroom are ELA standards about using appropriate voice and tone, and then creating stories and monologues that come from cultures different from our own. So my lesson is using Harry's story and his videos to storyboard out the daily life before, during, and after his own experience through the Holocaust, and then using that as a springboard when you have the personal connection to a daily life story, to life, what daily life would look like through other survivors' eyes in the ghettos, to get a daily life and see how things were. The terror was daily and it was long term.
One thing also, if you look up, so for those of you who teach younger students, Yad Vashem has a really great lesson that's a visual on life in the ghettos that is probably for like 8, 9, 10-year-olds. It's actually appropriate. It's interactive. You get to go through the ghetto and highlight over things and like read little entries. And it's very age appropriate for younger students if you're trying to introduce them to the topics of the Holocaust. Actually, a real quick interruption. Betsy, can you tell your story really quick about what you did? That's just really quick about.
Okay, my daughter is a three-nager, so she'll be 4 in July. She is a spicy girl. We have just had to remove everything but stuffed animals from her room, which means there are 8,000 in there, because she'll chuck books at the wall otherwise, because she doesn't want to go to bed yet. Stephen talked about taking his daughter when she was very young to one of the museums yesterday, and so we have found that if we read her higher level books, then she does a little bit better with bedtime, because we're deep in the midst of bedtime torture. I read her Terrible Things last night, and yeah, so usually, like, that was something that we used to teach to our 8th graders, so it was a bit of a swing. Her favorite characters are Wednesday and Jack Skellington, so I was not afraid of nightmares, which is problematic in itself. She stayed up until midnight last night, getting off of her bed and grabbing every single one of her stuffed animals and putting it into her bed so that she could, Mama, I teched them from dem Taubotings. And just like furious with me that I would interrupt her adventures down to her teepee to grab her animals and bring them up to her bed. But, well, so mad at me, empathetic to all of the animals. So that was.
Anybody here not know what the terrible things are? Maybe if you've never heard of it, the book, The Terrible Things. The Terrible Things is a brief little allegory book to the Holocaust, but it's kind of like a younger reading, but it uses the lens of like animals. It's kind of like the Niemöller poem, but it's told to the story of little animals and a rabbit that notices things happening, and the terrible things are scooping up the animals, and which is why she's protecting her little animals and her bed. But they're saying like, don't worry, they're going after the porcupines. They're all prickly. We don't like them. They're going after the birds. They cheep all night long. Let them go. They're not until there's no one left but them. So it's an interesting little allegory to introduce a very difficult topic like the Holocaust to kind of talk about the value of speaking up for others. I thought it was really sweet that her daughter was scooping up the animals to protect them in the bed. Okay, our next group. Who's speaking for? Group 7? Okay.
It is 3:01, so I'll make this quick. Okay, our standard was examine the origins, purpose, and conditions associated with various types of cans. This is intended for a high school social studies audience. We're going to start out with our, kind of like bell work, it'd be Harry's video clip is going to be played first. That way it can also be translated. Students are going to write down questions they have about Harry's story, vocab they don't know. They're going to engage in a turn and talk. Who doesn't love a turn and talk? Exactly. Then we're going to lead group discussion, anything for clarifications, answer any questions. Going into the activity, it's going to be a one-pager where students in groups of 2 to 4 are going to create a one-pager, which just includes basically like 4 vocab words from the era, a summary of the 2 events, description, a viewpoint, images, things like that, where they're just basically creating one page, kind of like a poster sort of situation. If people are pressed for time, what we have done in the past is make a list of quotes. They just cut out, we could pre-cut out the quotes or the images, and they post it on there themselves. And then for the exit ticket, it's going to be a post-it note. That way I can collect it very quickly, and they have fun with posting it. The question they're just answering is, given what you learned about Harry's experience, how do you think living in the camps would impact a person physically, emotionally, or spiritually? Obviously, if this is going to be for a higher level group, then we would take this up a notch, but we are not dealing with higher level students at our school. So this is what we're working with.
I think it was very good. Well done. That was well scaffolded. That was actually a great lesson. Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, for Group 8, our standard was explain the purpose of the death marches. So I think the heart of really what we were trying to do is to help students understand the purpose and place of death marches within the larger context of the final solution. A few of the activities that we've been creating are to present Harry Lowenstein's testimony as well as others, and emphasizing the pieces of those testimonies that talk about their experiences in death marches, providing all relevant background knowledge to get students to the point where they understand death marches and where they fit in. And then the main learning activity is going to be a timeline construction, so that students are creating kind of a visual tool for themselves, but also a conceptual tool to really see where the death marches fit in. A primary source that we were working with out of those that we had to choose from were the WANSI Conference and Protocol document. And that was a little bit challenging, but ultimately it was interesting to use because we were able to get to guiding questions that would be at the end of the timeline activity, where students in kind of a cooperative learning format answer reflection questions such as, how did the WANSI Conference and Protocol make the death marches possible? Why do you think the Nazis didn't mention death marches in planning meetings and documents? And in what ways were death marches similar to or different than other tactics that were made possible by Nazi Germany and the WANSI Conference and Protocol?
Very good. Thank you. Okay. And I know we're over. I let you go early yesterday, but I know we're over. I apologize right now. I'm not trying to like drag you out. I really, but I do want to honor and respect everyone that worked really hard on their lessons. So I'd like go ahead and if you'd like. Who's going? Are you guys? Oh, you're all okay. Y'all are. Oh, okay. That was it. Oh, okay. That was it. Okay. Online. Who is speaking for our online folks? I'd like to have. What's the next group? Is group 9 or group 9?
Group 1.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead. Group 9. One more time. Do I have a speaker for group 9?
Was that breakout room 4?
Kayla?
She just numbered us like 1, 2, 3. Like,
Okay, so actually, so we'll go with group 1 there.
okay. All right. We are from group 1, and ours was the first standard. Describe how the life of Jews deteriorated. And so our focus, our questions were trying to get the kids to think like on a teenager level, what are the most important rights for you currently, like how they got so upset when the TikTok ban was going to happen. In the like what things are the most important to you, and what are the dangers of government imposed restrictions on rights. So then we're going to have them look at the right citizenship law and kind of look at some of the restrictions on that, and then watch the video with Harry to put a face to the story, and to have them connect that. So firsthand on that. So, and then their personal connection, identify things that what they have in common with Harry, and what's different, a little compare and contrast.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. On that lesson, by the way, I really like that. If you want, well, there's I'm going to send out a copy. The Berlin Jewish History Museum, they have a room that has every piece of anti-Jewish legislation that was passed. And so I was really interested by all of it because it had everything from like Jews not being able to have chocolate, ride a bicycle, go to the beach, like very simple like laws that are a little more basic than like losing your overall rights as a human being, just kind of like the drip drip drip. And they sent me a full PDF copy of every single one of those laws. And they were very open to sharing. So I'll send that because that's I like that lesson.
Thank you.
Group 2. And I'll give you all. Who's our speaker for group 2? If we're going to skip, I will. Group 3.
Okay, I'm speaking for group 3. We had, hold on, I gotta switch my screen. We had the one about Kristallnacht, and I agree with the lady who said, don't let Mitch go till last, because now I have to repeat much of what he said. They had the same thing. But basically we wanted our kids to understand that before Kristallnacht, we had discrimination, and then after Kristallnacht allowed destruction. And then that's where violence became the norm. So we have a graphic organizer that kind of takes them through everything as they're working through the first, second, and third part, using the video from Harry Lowenstein, where he talks about, it says, there's a quote, "In the meantime, they took away my father's authorization to do business, and he had to go to work on the roads." We have some survivor testimony about the day of Kristallnacht, and asking the question, like, how would you feel if you woke up and all these things were, desecrated and all of this. So a little bit of self-discovery, self-reflection. And then using the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum website to look at the overview of Kristallnacht, because many of our students wouldn't even know what it was to begin with. And then using some excerpts from the stenograph to look at how life actually changed. And then following up with either Harry's video from where he spoke at Maitland Middle, which you can find online, his whole thing. Or there's an article about Harry where he saved a Torah, which connects back to another video that we had in there where it was a woman and she was watching the destruction of the synagogues and how people were going into the synagogue to get the Torah and how Harry got one over here for the synagogue that he belongs to. So just looking at how life changed and what happened before and after.
Fantastic. Nice job. Above and beyond. Okay, I believe, was that the last group online? I'm going to say yes. All right, there we go.
No.
Oh.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
I'll speak for group 4, Susan and Steve.
Okay,
We're
wonderful.
together in a group.
Okay.
Briefly, the angle we took is the standards on examine the role that bystanders, collaborators, and perpetrators played in the implementation of Nazi policies and so on. And we selected the perspective of Sophie Scholl. So we did change the prompt a little bit. Pardon our freedom here. And Sophie Scholl and the White Rose, if you are familiar with that. Young students at the Ludwig University in Munich who distributed pamphlets and raised awareness about the atrocities and the brutality of the Nazi regime, ultimately paid the ultimate price for having published in hiding 6 pamphlets. So the approach would be to create groups that study individual pamphlets, analyze them, paraphrase them, and maybe create the sequence of which pamphlets was worse, was the first one versus the last one. Then answer questions like, if you lived at that time a student at university, what would you have done had you received a pamphlet by Sophie Scholl? So thinking about the role of moving from bystander to upstander and extend from there on. Show the movie, of course, about Sophie Scholl. There's excellent material out there, also the US Holocaust Museum. And yeah.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you for speaking for the group. I really appreciate that. Okay, so that's our last share. Thank you all for allowing me to go over. That's probably the worst I've ever done. I've never gone more. I think I'm pretty good. I'm keeping my time. I'm going to publish something out if Holly doesn't mind it. I'm going to send an email. Holly wrote a poem. So if you don't know Holly Medelkern, Holly actually spoke for us last year. Kindly enough, and shared some of her poetry. She wrote a poem about the girls of the 999. I know y'all got to go, so I'm going to email you if that's okay with you, Holly. I'll post it in the Hoover chat. It is beautiful. It is so beautiful. It actually took me a while to get through it. But it was very impactful. Actually, I think it would work really well in an ELA class, just like instead of, with some of the testimony, just such a great add to the idea of a lesson. With that, we're going to wrap things up. Those of you that are online, I appreciate all of your patience. I know you've all been patient. I appreciate us being able to work with you. Thank you for everything that you've done, for contributing to the lesson plans, to all the work online, to sharing your resources, to being a good educator, and especially Lee, our out-of-state folks who are joining us. Thank you so much for joining us this whole week and contributing your expertise. Everyone who showed up here in person as well, thank you all so much. Each one of you individually, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss everyone online. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you all so much, and I hopefully look forward to seeing